Hello, can y'all hear me good?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm all right. I can't complain. How about you?
Doing great, doing great. Landon, are you here? We'll wait for him for a second.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What
Can you hear us good, Landon?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, good. All right, Coach, you ready to get started?
Yes, sir. I am. I'm ready.
All right, so the first question I mainly ask each podcast guest is tell us about how you got to where you are today. How did you get into basketball?
Kind of just grew up in it. I grew up in the projects here in Lexington, the Charlotte Court, and was lucky enough to be around and seen the Dirt Bowl. A lot of good guys came through before me, like the Jack Gibbons, the Dirk Minifields, and the things of that nature. So it was in my community a lot, and a lot of people did it. So that's kind of how I got started, and then just took off after that, and then which led me to go to college, which led me to play overseas for a year, and then when I came back, just fortunate enough to have seen a lot, and then got into coaching. So this kind of how, in a short version, that's how I got here.
This doesn't have to be just basketball, but what athletes did you look up to growing up?
Like in my neighborhood, I grew up watching the guys in my neighborhood more so than anything. Of course, you look up to the Magic Johnsons, the Dr. J's, the Larry Birds, the Kevin McHale's. You look up to those guys, but the guys I saw every day were like Dirk Minifield, the Vince Sanfords, the Prince Stewarts, those kind of guys. So I saw those guys growing up and being behind them. So they were kind of my idols.
So you played basketball at George Washington in college, and who are some of your favorite teammates going through the years?
Uh, the most notable one is Yinka Dare. May he rest in peace. Kind of the biggest guy I had ever played with. He was one of my favorites because I loved his demeanor. I loved his work ethic. I just loved him as a person. And so he was one of my favorites. But I had the whole group of guys that I came in with at GW were they still my best friends to this day. So I have a slew of them, I guess, you know.
Mm-hmm. So going from your sophomore to junior year, you made a big jump. What caused that big jump to happen?
What you mean, as far as high school
or college? College, sorry, at George Washington.
Okay. Put that time in the gym. I learned about working out. I learned about doing individuals. A guy by the name of Jeff Timberlake, he had played at BU for Coach Jarvis years before Jarvis came to George Washington. And my freshman year, I struggled a little bit just because I wasn't as skilled as some of the guys. You know, I could play. I was aggressive as everybody else, but skill-wise, I really couldn't shoot outside maybe 15, 16 feet consistently. And so I struggled. And then confidence-wise, I struggled. He kind of took me under his wing, and every morning at 5 o'clock, we met at the gym for an hour and a half, 2 hours. We just worked on every aspect of my game, and then I started seeing growth. So that's what helped me make the jump. He was very integral in my growth.
Going to your coaching now, what made you want to be a coach?
A lot of people helped me along the way. I got into coaching more so from the social work aspect of it. I know a lot of kids nowadays just play the sport. They don't understand that you have to go to school. You have to be a good community person. You have to be a respectable person. A lot of people put their hands on me as far as helping me learn that process along the way. So I got in it to give back, just because so many people helped me reach my goals.
Landon, we'll go to you for some questions.
All right. Hey, Coach. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
Good. So, being a former coach, what is one thing you wish you had known before getting into it that you didn't know when you started?
As far as coaching?
Yes, sir.
politic wise, I don't politic well with people. So politic wise, I didn't really like it. That's why I think I've kind of gotten away from it some, and I stay in the youth sports. Um, I think it's, how can I put this? Coaching was big for me. I loved it. I think I could move. I could help people. But what I was trying to do wasn't on the grand scheme of things of a lot of people around. So I don't think I meshed well. So after my stint at Bryan Station, I just decided that I needed to go back into doing helping youth and doing youth sports just because of what my goals were.
Gotcha. So a lot of parents sometimes get the opportunity to coach their son or daughter, and like you had that opportunity. So what is it like being a coach for your son compared to just watching your son in the stands play?
I was fortunate. I got to coach both my boys. Montel Moranis played when I was a coach at Bryan Station the first time with Shep Ligon. He played with Shelby McNabb and Jerron Jones and those guys. So I was fortunate enough to coach him as well. But what I learned from that was leave it at the gym. So when I got to coach Miles, my youngest, it was easier. We just made rules. So when we left out of the gym, we always said, we got the first couple of minutes, we'll talk about whatever we need to talk about, and then we just left it alone. So I never crossed the boundaries of taking my coaching home with my kids. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching him grow. I enjoyed being a big fan of his, of both of them. So it was really cool for me.
Yeah. So the first thing that pops to my mind, and I think a lot of people's mind when you hear Kentucky, is basketball. Would you say that?
Yes.
So when you also think of it, a lot of Kentucky high school sports, they don't really get a good rep for having elite athletes, so to say, whether it be football or basketball. So what would your take be on that, and why do you think that is?
I think kids are different nowadays. I think the scope of the game has changed. I think coaches have changed. I think players have changed. I just think it's a little different now. I think kids have, the reason why we haven't reached, I guess, the stardom of the past, a lot of kids don't put that work in, or they expect to get things. If I'm on the team, I should be playing because I'm on the team. Parents think the same way, and they put that in the kids' head. So it's kind of a tough situation to be in as a coach, especially nowadays with the way things are going. If that answers that.
Gotcha. I'll turn it back over to you.
Going back to high school sports a little bit. So the more modern rules are getting set into place where high school athletes can transfer wherever they want, whenever they want, with no consequences. What do you think about that?
I think it should have been that way a long time ago. I think us as coaches, especially in the high school, the one thing I never believed in is, even when I coached at Bryan Station, and I got rid of some kids that was probably controversial in my community, but for whatever reason it didn't work out. But the one thing I would never have done is I called coaches and said, hey, I don't think me and this young man is going to work it out. I'll call their parents. Maybe he can come play for you because he needs to play. My thing is those kids get 4 years. Now, I don't think you let it get out of hand. I think you make them make a choice. Once they make their choice, anything after that choice, they have to sit out just because they got a chance to make their choice to where to go.
What made you want to start Charlotte Court?
Giving back. When I went to college, I never saw myself doing anything but coming back to my neighborhood because that's all I ever knew. I didn't really know much of anything. So when I went to school and studied sociology. I came back and got into social work. I just saw it as a way to connect with kids, especially being fresh from playing. People still really knowing me in my playing days and me still being able to play at that time. I thought it was a great way to use what I had to encourage kids to really do right. I preach school. all my kids, any kids that have ever played for me, they'll tell you still to this day if they're still in school, man, first thing I ask about is their grades. So I just saw it as a way for me to change lives.
With high school athletes having more options now, like coming out of like high school, what do you think that they should do? Should they go to college if they're going to be a one and done player, or should they try to pursue these like G League teams or go overseas for a year?
I think it's based on the individual and the families, and sometimes situations. Sometimes people need to go because of their situations at home. I love my college experience and never would trade it for anything. Just because I got to grow up with my friends, the friends I have now, and I still got some of my friends from high school that we still hang out. But the guys that I have grown with over the years, they're still my friends, and I never would have met those guys if I didn't go to college.
Do you have a memorable playing career moment that you'd want to share?
I have a couple. It was kind of one is more sentimental than the other. I think my junior year when I really kind of emerged, we went to Xavier, and I'm from Ohio. I'm from Cincinnati. Just moved out here when I was young. So it gave me a chance to play in front of my family live. You know, people saw me on TV, but to come back home and play in front of my family and win in, I think it was a double or triple overtime, it was great. You know, I love that. And then also the Syracuse game my senior year when we beat them up there in their arena. That was very special because that was an overtime game, and they had a bunch of pros on their team, and we really played our butts off that day. So those two kind of run neck and neck with me.
So a follow-up question to the playing one is, who are some of your toughest players that you had to guard?
Ooh, Lord. In college, high school, or what?
Any, really.
Let me see. I'm going to tell you one of the guys that really made me understand that size meant something. It was Brent Berry. We played Oregon State out there, and we won, of course. We beat them. But he was about 6'7", and, you know, yes, I could guard him, and yes, I was just as good as him, but those couple of inches made a big difference, and he knew how to use them. So I admired that about him. I really did, because he took what he had and used it and maximized it. You know, and I know a lot came from his dad and the family tree, but I really enjoyed playing against him because he made me really work.
Now going to coaching, do you have a couple memorable moments coaching?
LTMS days. My LTMS days is where I really would like to be. If I could ever do it all again, I would go back to middle school. That's kind of where I think I'm needed and most needed, and where I had the most success, and I loved it more. We went 3 years without losing, and it all came from just hard work. Kids coming to the gym every day, staying extra, coming on Saturdays and Sundays. I just kept the gym open at all time, and those kids really bought in. So the LTMS years is what I really love and I really cherish the most as far as my coaching career goes.
Landon, I'll go back to you.
All right. So the state of AAU nowadays, in my opinion, is going downhill with competition not being viewed as competitive as it was, say, 5 years ago. What needs to be changed to get it back to where it used to be?
Everybody can't coach it. You know, I think what happens is, say for instance, if a kid is playing for me, and I'm very fair about what I do, but if a kid is not performing, then you come over and sit down. What we have nowadays is a father or uncle or somebody who may get mad and just go take the kids and go start their own team. So now what we've done is diminish the competitive nature. They don't fight for anything anymore. They just kind of well, if he's not going to play, now go over here. You know, they don't really fight for it. So I think, and then also having so many games in a weekend, I think they're desensitized to losing. You know, that scares me, because even to this day, if I lose playing cards, I'm like, I'm in a tizzy. these kids are losing. Hey, they smiling and going on like it never really bothers them. And I didn't come from that era. Everything we did was blood, sweat, and tears on that floor. And then when we came off the floor, it was something different. We just went back to our everyday lives. But on that floor, it was a war. And some of those kids probably weren't fortunate enough to come up under that to even understand what that means,
Yeah. So when it comes to high school sports and AAU ball, we see a lot of criticism towards referees, and it has made it harder to hire them for games nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you draw the line between parents and their interactions during the game?
Parents should sit up at the top, because even before I came to coach at Bryan Station, and sometimes even with my oldest, I like sitting in the stand and watching my kids. I enjoy it just because they enjoy it themselves. It's something they love to do. I think parents need to just get away and let their kids learn. Sometimes you have to go through hard times to understand how to get to good times. And if parents would get out of the way, a lot of kids would learn that and learn how to work hard. Because then what happens later on in life, when they don't get their way and they're adults, they don't know how to really handle it. So I think parents need to just go sit up there and let coaches be the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that are listening that don't know you, you were a very successful coach wherever you went, whether it was Bryan Station High School or Charlotte Court with AAU. And I had the privilege to be trained by you and coached by you at the same time.
Yes.
So what did you instill into your teams that made it easier for them to compete and win?
Oh, you just got to play hard. You may not always win, but if you go leave everything on that floor, and I believe in defense. I believe in playing hard. I believe in playing a lot of kids. If you do that, I think you can be satisfied with yourself whether you lose or win, because you're not always going to win. But if you go lay it all out there, I think you can walk away happy. And I think I left my kids happy. I made them work. I bit them hard. Everybody knows I'm a hard coach. But once you really understand where I'm coming from, I think people see growth. And then they understand it, because when they go to the next level, or they find coaches who are just really coaching them and not really, how can I put it? Some coaches don't let it get personal. They just coach and go on. I like to be intimate with my kids and make them understand when you go to the next level, I love you. They might not love you. They just might love what they do. So just love instilling that and love going from there.
Gotcha. Turner, I'll turn it back over to you.
What changes would you like to see to any level of basketball, like rule changes?
A shot clock. Then you're going to see who can coach. Then I think our kids get better prepared. Because when you go to that next level, how many kids can't go to that next level, or they come home because they don't understand how to process the game? A shot clock would help either weed out the coaches who can't do that, or it'll make them evolve into even better coaches and be able to help kids and transition into the next level. So a 30-second shot clock would be great. That's one rule I really do believe in.
With the game like kind of changing a little more into like everybody's starting to shoot a lot more. Do you see the use of the traditional big man trying to like just dissolve?
No, I love the big man. Anybody who you talk to, they know I love big men. The funny thing about after Bryan Station, when I left Bryan Station, if I was going to stay that next year, I had exactly what I wanted. I had enough size, I had enough length. Because I believe in traditional 4 and 5 men. I believe in going down to the post. I believe in all that. Steph Curry made the game. He changed the game. He made it evolve in a certain way that everybody can't do. So, but that old traditional way, it allows for everybody to be on the floor, and you can be successful doing it.
Going to the training part of basketball, with social media kind of like, just like coming up in the world, a lot of these trainers are starting to just being labeled as Instagram trainers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you see social media being negative towards training more than positive?
I guess it's who it is. I don't knock anybody who trains. I really don't. What I tell my kids are, when they go to a trainer, if they're just putting you through drills and they don't explain them to you or why you do those drills, then you need to get away from that trainer. And not to say anything bad about people, you know, I don't want to knock anybody's money or anything of that nature. But if they're not training you why you do certain things, then I don't feel like they're good trainers. And that's not knocking them. You know, if people do things and, you know, everybody does it differently. Like, I believe in training. I'm training now, and I don't never really advertise. And I'm actually getting ready to start advertising a little bit more because I'm really getting back into it because I think they need it. But, like, I sat down yesterday with a 7th grader, and an 11th grader, and I had to tell them, like, why are we doing this drill? And they just look like, what? And I said, you know, when you curl, you know, where's the defender? I don't know. And it's sad because it's an 11th grader who couldn't tell me this. And then also a 7th grader going in who couldn't tell me this. When I coached middle school basketball, my kids could tell you why this is why we run this play or why I curl or why I fade. You know, I taught them basketball, so it could be transferable to another level with a coach who had to understand that, oh, I can work with that kid because that kid has the knowledge. So now I can really give him a chance. He may have to get stronger, may have to get faster, but if he understands basketball, that's half the battle.
You talked about Shelvin Mack a little bit. Could you see his potential coming out of Bryan Station to see, like, what his career would have been?
Yes, he's different. You know special kids when you see them. And what I loved about Shell was he never went with the crowd. Like, even when, you know, that was probably in some of the heydays of my Charlotte Court stuff. He never really wanted to play with us. He liked to play against us. He always wanted to be on the worst team to try to make his team better, make him better. And I love that he took those challenges. He went to the gym every day. He was one of the first kids who really sought it out during the time that we was coming through. So I enjoyed him just because I think he earned everything that he got.
You talked about seeing players that were, like, different. What were some of those other players that you saw as, like, they were different from everybody else?
Sometimes you see kids who are just special. They can, and that means that you can see them at other levels being special. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not that you're special here because, or just in your city. You can look at that transcending to other areas. Let me see who else I could say that I saw, like Marquez, that's up in Northern. He was special. I used to kind of not like his game because I was like, there was something about it. It may be because he was a lefty. You know, those lefties always throw me off. But he was one, but he was solid. His numbers were always solid. Isaiah Tisdale, man, he was one, and he played for me at Charlotte Court. He played for one of my teams at Charlotte Court. The whole time before he came to me, I did not like this young man's game. There was something about it, but he always proved me wrong. His stats were always there, and it was like, dang, he has the ugliest game, but he got all the results. So he was a special one, and then went on to play at East Carolina. And because of the pandemic, never really got to enjoy a pro career, but now he's in coaching at Wake Forest. So those guys right there are guys that I see are special. Charles Ashford, Charles Ashford coming out of high school, he was special, loved basketball, but his body was small. He went on to Vincennes, came out to be special, went on to play All-American, JUCO All-American, all that stuff. Now, he didn't have the greatest college career, but he really loved it. You know what I mean? So, but those guys were special. Some guys just stick it out a little bit more.
So, where did you go to play overseas again?
I played in the Netherlands. I played in Amsterdam for a year.
How was that experience?
I loved it. I didn't want to come back. I loved it for the simple fact of it is it was the people, the society of it was just so different. I felt so at home. Being by myself for the first time, I was by myself. I didn't have any friends or family, so I had to really grow up fast. But what I loved was the European culture being so inviting and open. And like when I didn't speak the language, and I would feel so bad I couldn't speak the Dutch language, but they were understanding. They would try to teach me words or teach me phrases so I could kind of communicate better. I loved it there. The only reason I didn't go back or didn't stay was because the company that was sponsoring the team ended up moving to another country, so they lost the funding, and then so they tried to send me to Iceland, and I just gave it up. I didn't want to go to Iceland. I just ended up just coming back and started working and coaching.
Another coaching question for you. So, I mean, this may be more of an obvious one, but this is mainly for the listeners. So,
Okay.
throughout your coaching years, what made you like motivate all your players, like with your coaching style? Like, how did you get your players motivated, like to work so hard for you?
I don't know, because I love my players being successful. I'm a big fan, but I like them to play hard and I push them hard. But when they have that success, I'm like the biggest cheerleader for them. The end result is what I want for them, just because I experienced a whole lot during my time, and I know what they're feeling. I know what their feeling is, and if I can push them to make them get that just a little bit, that's what I strive for, and that's what kept me going, and that's what made me push them. That's what made me see, if they saw a little bit in their game growing, like they come to the gym, they see their jumper improving, they see their ball handling improving. That's what made me happy. Just seeing them get better and better, and them turn around and believing in themselves. When they believed in themselves and they could believe they could do anything, I got a big joy out of that, because people did that same thing for me.
Landon, I'll go back to you.
All right, so I kind of want to get look through the eyes of a coach real quick.
Okay.
So, when you were breaking down film of another team, what are some things that you looked at to help you get an advantage for the game?
I love, because when we watch film in college, and I kind of did it the same way. I kind of run my defense the way I scout, but I look at how the tendencies of players, things they like to run. Like I can tell you in 3 trips what a player likes to do, and I try to teach my kids, make them go this way, make them go that way, and then once you start seeing what they can and cannot do after 2 or 3 dribbles, then you make your adjustments. But you should be able to do that in 3 or 4 trips in the way you handle people.
So now I want to kind of look into the individual player, and it could be the individual player on your team or the other team. So what are some ways that you break down a player and you look at their strengths and their weaknesses?
When I look at a player, if I'm looking at a player, I like to see if they can go left or right. And sometimes people don't understand this. Like if I got a right-hand player and I'm coaching against them and I'm looking at the player, and they might be able to handle the ball going left. And I always tell my players, push him left. Well, coach, he can go left. But what is the percentage of him scoring going left as opposed to him going right? I tried to make people look at the percentage side, to get more out of it, because as the game went on, most of the time those percentages go down if you put people in tough situations that they're not really familiar with or comfortable with. So I always try to find the weakest link part of their game. It may be something they could do, but it was just a weak link, and I tried to really drive that home and really make it a problem for them.
Gotcha. So one thing I always like to ask coaches on here is, what is some pieces of advice you'd give to others like me that are wanting to become a coach maybe in the future?
Be planned out, have everything planned from start to finish. Get you some people who are as hungry about the game as you are. Don't take friends just because they're friends. Don't take somebody because they were referred to you. You really have to find somebody who in their heart really truly love being in that gym, love being detailed, love pushing kids, love seeing kids be successful. So for me, it was just get the people who are on the same level as you and want the success, and really, and make sure that you got somebody that's okay with being in the position under you. Because sometimes you can hire the wrong people who really have a desire to have your spot, and it can be really, really bad for you.
Gotcha. So one thing I always find interesting is I always ask them is, if you could do it all over again, would you, and what would you change?
Like as far as coaching?
Yeah, coaching, playing, whatever it may be.
Okay. Playing, as far as playing, I'll do both. As far as playing, my only thing that I wish I had kept playing. I just wish I had kept playing. I don't have any regrets for not playing anymore because I stopped on my own. Nobody stopped me. I stopped on my own. But I wish I would have just played a little bit longer and enjoyed the world, not for the money of it, but really just enjoying basketball in other countries, seeing things. I wish I would have done that a little bit more. But I really was happy with my career. As far as the coaching, what I would change is, if I would coach, I wouldn't coach in Lexington. I would go somewhere else. I think it's hard when you come from here. You fight off some things that sometimes if you go somewhere else, you don't always have to fight. Being known, sometimes the expectations are so high in certain situations that you can't win. So if I'd done anything, I wish I would have taken some of the opportunities to coach college ball early, just to kind of get that experience. But again, I have no regrets because I look back at the Charlotte Court program, in which I'm still running. I look at the success of the kids, not only in sports, but I'm talking about in life. So I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? So I'm happy with the route I've gone in both situations. Even though I probably wish I could have done some other things, I'm happy with where I'm at.
Yeah. So whenever I got an offer out of high school, I always took it and was glad and I ran with it. But nowadays you see these kids that get a JUCO offer or a D3 offer and they're not as happy with it and they want to go D1 and they have their eyes set on D1. What would you tell those kids that only get those D3 and those JUCO offers?
Basketball's basketball. At the end of the day, for everybody, it stops at some point. Everybody can't get on the level. It doesn't mean that you're not D1 material. Because I've seen some guys that are D2 and D3 that belong D1, but for whatever reason it didn't happen. My thing would be is enjoy it while you can because it goes away real fast. I always tell people this. I had a chance to go to Maryland. Maryland was my dream school. People will tell you, I tell the story all the time. I love Maryland. But one thing I was realistic with myself. When I went on my visit, they wanted to play me at the 3 spot, at the 4 spot. This is in the ACC in the early 90s. And I looked around and everybody was bigger than me. So I really dropped my head and I said, I can't play here. It hurt my feelings so bad, but I realized that this wasn't the place for me. It didn't mean I couldn't play D1. It just meant that I probably wasn't going to be successful in the ACC playing D1. So when I went across town to GW, it was a little bit more my speed. The league wasn't as big. We had big players, but I could play multiple positions in the A10. And we had just as much competition as the ACC. It just looked a little different. So I just had to realize myself that I had limitations. I just had to go in the right spot to be able to show my skills.
Yeah. So whenever I was trained or coached by you when I was young, one thing you would always say is to compete or to give it your all. So would you say that comes from your mindset of the game or from where your heart is with the game?
A little bit of both. I give my all in everything. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a kid, whether it's me playing cards, I give my all because I think when you give your all, you usually get the best results that you can. But if you don't get those results you're looking for, you can walk away satisfied. And that doesn't mean that you don't go back and try it again, but you can feel good about yourself because the effort that you gave. And I believe in that. If you give your all in anything, you can look yourself in the mirror. And you don't have to worry about anybody else, but you can look yourself in the mirror and be happy about that.
Turner, I'll give it back to you.
Coach, who are some of your favorite players to watch nowadays in any level of basketball?
Of course, you got to like LeBron. You know what I'm saying? I think he's the ultimate team player. Dame Lillard, as far as the pro levels go. Dame Lillard, I love watching Steph. I love the Golden State Warriors and all those guys. I like how they play together. I'm a big San Antonio fan. That's probably my favorite team. I just love how they run their organization. I love what they do for their players. I know they're down and not they're good at this time, but I just love everything about them. But LeBron's probably the one I get a kick out of watching because he's such a specimen.
That's perfect lead offs in this next question. What's your stance on the Michael Jordan LeBron debate?
Oh, shit, Jordan. and I'll tell you why. It doesn't diminish anything that LeBron has done. I think LeBron is going to be the greatest player, stat-wise, of all time. But if I'm going down the stretch of something, and this is, if I'm going down the stretch and I got to have a killer out there on the floor, I'm going for MJ. And I watched him, you know what I mean? And it come from a different era. It's the era where you had to be physical. You had to really play hard all the time, or you just didn't make it. LeBron's in a different era where they got load management. It's just different. I think he's the ultimate team player. Now, I would love to play with him because I know he would always make me better. Now, but if I want a player, I want Jordan.
So, going to kind of a different question. So, you talked about Maryland a little bit. Do you think that Len Bias would have been close to Jordan's skill level if he got into the NBA?
Yes. I love Lenny Bias. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to go to Maryland. I loved him. It's before I even knew Jordan. And I don't know how I got to learn about Lenny Bias. It might have been through Streets and Smith. That's because that's what we used to look at back in the day. We didn't have the social media, but we had Streets and Smith, the magazine. Our goal in life was to get in Streets and Smith. So we would look at those things. And I loved Lenny. I loved his athleticism. I loved everything about him. And I just, for some odd reason, as a kid, that's who I wanted to go to Maryland because of him.
So, going back, you talked about the Dirt Bowl a little bit. What separates a player that can, do good at the Dirt Bowl compared to going back to college or even professional indoors and doing good?
Because they're just playing. It's a lot of people, but when you get into schemes and plays, and you have a lot of guys that can get out there as a street ball player, and you're like, wow, why come he's not playing somewhere? But you put him in a system, and they can't function. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life was I played for Bobby Washington, and he had a chance to play in the pros. So he taught us how to run sets. He taught us how to see 2 or 3 plays ahead. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get that knowledge and see the game a different way. And he was a point guard. So I think that helped me. But in some cases, if you have coaches who just see somebody who's athletic that can do certain things, sometimes they just let those guys go. And that's not always good because they don't know how to play within systems, so it makes it tough for them. So the Dirt Bowl is a little different now than it was then when I played, and even before me. When we played it, when I was playing during my time there, people would always say to us, man, you look like y'all running plays. But we were all college performers. We knew how to do certain things. The man over play would go back door. It was automatic. We knew how to play the game. So what people thought were plays was just really reaction and knowing the game. I think the kids have lost those instincts. They've lost those skills. They don't know the simple things of the game. So I think that's the biggest difference now than playing in the Dirt Bowl, and some not transferring over to schools, being able to play in their schools or their colleges. Some can and some can't.
So with high school transfers, when do you think it's the smart move for a player in a state like Kentucky to transfer to one of these higher prep schools Oak Hill, Montverde, IMG, any of those?
If you're going to do that, I think you go earlier. Going your last year, it can be tough because you have other people that have probably been there. If you think a kid is that special, then I think you put them on the track a lot faster. For example, backcourt partners is Kwame Evans, and what he did for his son. I think he's top 5, top 2, top 3, something in next year's class. And he was in Baltimore really doing great, but he had to pull him out there and put him down at Mount Vernon and make him really stay humble and work hard. Now he stayed the first year, didn't start, had to learn how to make sure he's keep working hard and pushing through. And now he's going to be, and he started, I think he began to start in the game late in the year. So I think if you get in it early, I think it could be a good thing. It doesn't always mean success because you just get up and go. You know what I'm saying? There are other elements that may be involved. If these kids don't know you, it might be tough for you. And 1 year doesn't always help.
Landon, I'll go back over to you.
All right. So I don't know if you're going to ask this, Turner, but we always like to get the coach's viewpoints on NIL and what you think about it.
It's funny that you say that. I told my AD when I was a senior, we had a conversation, and it was like an exit conversation. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I saw my friend who was, he's still one of my best friends to this day. We talk every morning before I go to school. I saw my friend graduate the year before me, and he was from Detroit. And I saw him struggle. You know, this guy had given, 3-4 years of his life to this college, and he walked away with, okay, a degree, but it was a degree in sociology that they pushed us all to. So he really walked away with nothing. And not having that person behind you that can help you steer you through some of those things, I felt like even in that case, he was left empty. So what I talked to the AD about was, how won't you take some of the ticket money, put it in some kind of a fund, and if a kid graduates, then they get a certain percentage of something when they graduate to help them start their careers. He looked at me and laughed, but I was like, this is life-altering. So you expect me to go back to my neighborhood where I come from? Why would you want me to be here where I made my connections and things of that nature? But at that time, that was unheard of. And then right after that, I think Ed O'Bannon and all those guys really started trying to push that.
So do you believe that there should be a salary cap like the NBA or NFL on these NIL deals, or what's your view on that?
That's hard for me to say because I think for years people have jumped on the backs of kids and they've prospered. So I don't know putting a cap on it, but I wouldn't put a cap on it because everybody's not going to get the same situation. But what I would do is provide educational support as far as with finances. And for the guys who didn't really have much of something, I would try to put a plan together to give them some form of a package, as they exited, just to make sure that they got off to a good start. Now, some guys just earn it. They're good enough. I think they need to go get it.
Yeah. So there are some universities out there, like Kentucky to say, that offer lifetime scholarships. So once they are done playing professionally, they can come back and get their degree or whatever. But for those that don't offer that, would you express to other, let's say, athletes to go to a high degree so when they do graduate, and if they don't make it successfully in the pro, they have something to fall back on? Or would you say to go to a lighter major so that they can focus on sports?
No, I'll be honest with you. I'm big on that. We've talked about that over the years. I think you got to put kids on the right track of thinking that they won't make it in basketball. And if basketball comes, that's just a plus. I've always thought that, especially for kids who, like myself, only played 1 year. Now, play 1 year pro. When I came back home, now what it made me have to do is I had a sociology degree. Now, a sociology degree doesn't get you anything. It gets you through the door, but it doesn't get you anything. So when I went back to get my social work, my master's in social work, instead of me having to take 24 hours, I had to turn around and take 60 hours. So now, not only did I have to go back and get extra schooling, now I'm left with another bill. When instead, if my college had sat down and talked to me and say, what is what is your future? What are you going to do in your future? And I would have always told them I want to do social work. But instead, I feel, I can't say this for everybody, but I feel that's what a lot of colleges do. They put you in something simple to keep you eligible.
Yeah. So I want to transition over to women's sports now.
Okay.
I love to watch the women's game. I love to support them. I believe that they should get higher pay. I believe they should get more views, and they should get equal TV rights and everything like that. How do you believe that they go about that and getting to that opportunity?
I think they're on the right track. I think we just got to keep pushing. I love watching girls' sports. I love to watch ladies compete. I learned to value that when I went to college, because I got to see a lot of women's sports that I wasn't used to. Row, soccer, and I saw some soccer stuff back home, but I wasn't that into it at that time. You know what I mean? I had friends who played it, or like when I got to see volleyball. We didn't have volleyball here when I graduated, but when I got up there to see the girls volleyball, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how they compete. Now, girls basketball, I love watching because I think they execute well. I think they're smart. Minus some of the athleticism. So that is, but other than that, I think it's a joy to watch. Going forward, I think it's on us as a society to start putting things in place to ensure that the ladies get what they're supposed to get. Now, I don't know how we push that, like in the NBA. I think they said the other day, I think LeBron's salary is more than the whole WNBA league. Now, with that, now I'm not saying LeBron don't deserve his money. Not saying that at all. But I think if those guys are getting that kind of money, I think we could do a little bit more for the girls, for the women rather.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to women's sports, like you said, athletically, that's where a lot of the downside comes to it, and people fall off and don't watch it because of that reason. So
Right.
I guess what would make the game more entertaining for them, and what are some things that the women do better than men do in the sport of basketball?
I think if you watch women's sport, you watch them execute. I get a lot of my plays and stuff from women because you can see it all the way through. Then minus I appreciate basketball like I appreciate any other sport. So you don't have to fly through the air and dunk the ball for me to enjoy that. I enjoy the craft, the things that people do, whether you're male or female. But women seem to, how can I put it? It's enjoyable to watch because they really play for perfection. One thing when you're working with men, if they do something successful 2 or 3 times, then they think they got it, and then most of the time they go away, and then you got to pull teeth to get them back to go back to what they were doing. Women seem to stay locked in a little bit more sometimes, from my experience.
Yeah. So I want to kind of transition back into your coaching and your teams. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you always wanted your teams to get out in the community and help. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
What are some ways that us as young men, not me, but like those that are in high school still, what are some ways that they can get out and impact their communities as they grow up?
I think you can start within your schools. I think you keep it simple because there's so much out there, but you don't want to take on things sometimes that are too big for you. I think you can start small and kind of find your interests. You go through your school programs, find ways to, or areas that are in need, figure out what that need is, and then talk to people and see what you can do and put plans together. I just say seek it out. Just kind of fill out what it is in your heart. In my heart is seeing kids survive and strive. So I try to put myself around things that's going to be community driven, because I understand the pitfalls or some of the pitfalls they may go through that others don't understand, because I was one of those kids. So with that being said, I just think I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Can we move forward?
Yeah, you're good, Coach. I'll turn it back to you.
So my last main point of thought is, do you have anything on your mind, or anything that you want to say to the listeners?
No, only thing I would say is enjoy the kids. Get out and support the kids. Now, I think a lot of things have changed over the years. Like, I remember playing in front of packed houses. If we want these kids to be successful, if we want these kids to correct some of the things that we're talking about, I think we as the community, we as the adults, need to get behind these kids. We need to make sure that they're doing the right things. We need to make sure coaches are holding them accountable, but also doing the right things by them. The one thing I hate to see most is when you see a kid have a great high school career and then you find out that they didn't even go to school because they didn't have the grades. So how did they play them 4 years? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, I just think we should need to get behind them, push them, support them, even in their struggles, because we're gonna have a lot of guys that come from backgrounds that where they struggle, and this put more supports in place to make it better for them. If we do that, I think we'll see an uprise in things, and go to the games and cheer. Don't go critique the coach. Just go cheer them on. Let the coaches go in the back with their staff and make whatever adjustments they have to make. That's why they get paid the money. Just support the kids.
Landon, do you have any closing thoughts or questions?
I don't. He's answered all my questions pretty well.
All right, Coach. That's the end of the podcast here. We appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I was surprised, but but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So
Thank you.
all right, we'll finish it off here. So Landon, thanks for coming on again, and Coach, we'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Thank you too.
All right, see y'all.
See y'all.